Hey, everybody, welcome to the Cliff Yates Show podcast. We are recording for the podcast platforms, but we're also streaming live today on a couple platforms so we can actually take questions. And I'm retired LA County Sheriff Sergeant Cliff Yates, and we're talking police stuff today. And my favorite, we're talking stolen cars. And I'm not even going to call him a guest. I'm going to call him my co-host today. He's my good buddy, retired NYPD Auto Theft Division Sergeant Vic Ferrari. Vic, thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Cliff, thank you so much. You promoted me. I retired as a detective. I never took the sergeant's exam because I never wanted to manage people.
That's what I was going to ask you. I thought, so you get a gold shield when you went to detective division, right?
Yeah, in the NYPD, to become a detective, you have to work 18 months. It might have changed since I left, but you had to work 18 months in an investigative unit. And, you know, if you had good evaluations and you weren't a problem child and you were doing good work, then they would promote you to the rank of detective. You're not above a cop. You're not above. You're basically on the same level as a police. So if you can't order them around or anything, but there's a bump in pay and prestige, I guess.
Hey, I got my buddy Patrick Davis. He retired as I think he'll tell us, out of the 51st or something out of the Bronx. Did you know him, Patrick Davis?
No, there's no 51st. The number it's 5052 is as high as you go.
Okay, let me hope if he comes on. He just retired a little while ago, and we're
okay. Good
buddies. He's got a acro yoga personal division. He trains people, and they actually go up to the new building there, not the World Trade Center, but it's the Freedom Tower, right? And they actually do a whole thing on the top floor. But he's a good guy, yeah. But
where'd you work, Patty?
Yeah, Pat, where'd you work? Get it on there, buddy. Come on, you're retired now. You're out. It's okay to say where you worked. Hey, in the meantime, so I always thought for some reason NYPD you became a sergeant. You had to be the rank of sergeant to detective division, but no, you just get a gold shield. Okay, great. Just like me, I loved stolen cars, man, and I love your book. I couldn't put it down. As a matter of fact, I want to show the cover, and we'll put a link in the description here in the show notes also. Hey, there it is, man. Grand Theft Auto, NYPD Auto. So it was called Auto Crime Division.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
he was in the NYPD. So you have. There's 5 boroughs in New York, and every borough had a borough-level auto larceny unit.
Okay.
And Detective Bureau Zone Command. Okay. So I'm guessing the Bronx.
Yeah, the Bronx, I think. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so every borough's got an auto larceny unit, and they go out and they look for stolen cars. It's almost like the AAA affiliate of the Auto Crime Division. And guys in the auto larceny unit aspire, most of us, to go to the big leagues, the major leagues, or under organized crime control. And with that, there's more freedom, there's better informants, more leeway. There's a lot to learn. Obviously, the auto larceny is a stepping stone to get into the auto crime division.
Oh, great. Okay, I love the story. Now you went to stolen car, Grand Theft Auto training, right? And then the guy announces that anybody want to come to this division, and of course, you raise your hand. Tell that story because they kind of screwed you over on the deal, right?
They screwed me over more than once. So the Auto Crime Division is very secretive. They don't like giving out information because, and I get that too. I mean, now being an insider, confidential VIN numbers on cars, Gimbals doesn't tell Macy's what's going on. And the Auto Crime Division had a school, and everybody in the NYPD wanted to go to the school because with the school you got 4 college credits. So it was a week-long course you got 4 college credits. So everybody wanted to go, and to be a sergeant you needed extra college credits. So everybody wanted to go to that week-long school to pick up 4 college credits. Everybody went to that school or wanted to get into it. And they don't really teach you much in there. It's just basically a broad brush of about stolen vehicles. Like me going to that school was a waste of my time. I knew too much already. But yeah, there's a story in the book where one of the old salty detectives, I'm in there with maybe 30 guys from every unit in the NYPD. And he says, and I was young. I was probably had 5 years, 4 or 5 years on the job. And he goes, is there anybody here that would like to work in the auto crime division? And I raised my hand. He goes, stand up. And I knew it. I knew I was screwed.
Shit.
And he said,
Yeah.
you got any family above the rank of captain? And I said, no. And he goes, sit down. You're never going to work here. And I'm saying to myself, fuck this guy. I'm getting in. You know, it took me another 5 years, but I finally got in there. He was retired by the time I got in there because I would have said something to him. But yeah, it was one of those things. They weren't going to keep me out.
No. And that's a really coveted position, right? So, I mean, everybody's fighting to get there, right? I mean,
oh, it's very difficult to get in because I don't know now, but back then it was 120 detectives. And were there guys in there like myself that broke their ass and really learned the trade of auto theft to get in there? Yeah. Were there guys in there whose fathers were captains, inspectors, chiefs, or people related to politically people that parachuted in there, as we used to say?
Yeah.
And really just didn't do anything, but they were sacred cows. You couldn't get them out for a lack of performance because of who they knew. So it cut both ways. I would call it 60-40, that it was 60% guys that knew what they were doing, and then you had the 40% that just kind of treaded water.
Yeah, I think we had the same kind of things in our specialized units, and it's just like, and so you busted your ass to get there, right, through stats and bringing in crooks, and then, so I noticed, so then let's say you're the street copper working regular patrol, and then is your way to get in contact with these guys is to grab people with stolen cars or get information on stolen car rings, and then you got to call them, and then you're kind of giving them work, right? So they get to know you personally. Is that how you kind of hustled it?
Yes and no. So there's a fine line with that, because if you keep calling them every 15 minutes with stuff, you're a pain in the ass.
Pain in the ass, right? You're not a help. Yeah.
So there's a story in not in Grand Theft Auto, another one of my books, where I'm young. And I had a sergeant that knew a little something about stolen cars, and we started pulling in tag jobs, vehicles that the vehicle identification number was changed on the car. It's stolen, but it's masked with a salvage vehicle's VIN number. And I pulled over a couple of cars, and I knew they were bad, but I didn't know how to identify them. I didn't know to find the confidential vehicle identification number that would tell me where this vehicle was stolen from. So I would call the auto crime division, and they would say, yeah, we're going to send a couple of detectives down. And what I quickly figured out was, A, I'm making work for them, and B, they didn't want to share the information with me. So what they would do is they would rope-a-dope me. One guy would come in and start, oh, let's talk to your perp. And I was like, well, I really want to go out there and see where you find the confidence. Yeah, we'll get to that. So one guy would distract me with talking to the prisoner. The other guy would go out there, and 15 minutes later come back with a VIN number. Go, here you go, kid. Car stolen out of Queens 3 weeks ago. Well, that's great. Can you show me where the confidential VIN number is? Oh, we're getting paged. This is what beepers. We got to go. And they did this to me 2 or 3 times. And then finally my sergeant said, they're playing a game on you. Yeah. So one time I called them, and my sergeant, it got to the point where before they even got into the station house, they would go in the parking lot, find the car I brought in, get the hit, and then come in. So my sergeant laid out in the parking lot in his car and just sat there and sat on the car. And when they went up to the car and opened the hood, he jumped out, called me. I came out, and he was like, he basically ordered them to show me, which they weren't happy. And, you walk a fine line. And here's the thing. There was one detective that used to do this to me all the time, and we wound up becoming partners years later. Because I go to the auto crime division a couple of years later, and he sees me, and he's looking at me, and he goes, you son of a bitch. You and your sergeant sandbagged me up in the 5-0 that time. And I was like, well, you were jerking us around. And, but I learned so much from that guy. It's like we became friends, and, he was a sharp guy, and I learned quite a bit from him before he ultimately retired. And there's a story in my book where I'm in the office with an arrest, and there's this rookie cop, and he's trying to get into the auto crime division, and he's calling up every 15 minutes. And I tell him, he found an abandoned car in the woods, and he's asking me, I need you to come out here and find the confidential VIN number. And I says, listen, I'm busy. Call the mounted unit. They have their own auto crime division. He's like, really? I said, oh, yeah. I said, then they'll have their team of horses tow the thing out, right? So what winds up happening is a couple of hours later, I feel guilty, and my partner and I go to the precinct, and we ask for this cop, and the desk officer goes, come here. And I go, what's up? And he goes, did you tell that fucking idiot that there's a mounted anti-crime unit? I said, auto crime unit. I said, yeah. He goes, well, he keeps calling up the mounted unit, and their CO is madder than hell. And he hands me a piece of paper. He goes, tomorrow, the deputy inspector from the mounted unit wants to see you. He doesn't think this is particularly funny. So I said, oh, shit. So the next day, bright and early, I get up. And I got, I know I'm going to have to stand tall before the man. And this guy is like, I knew this wasn't going to get me thrown out of auto crime, but I really didn't want to come off as a clown.
Yeah.
So I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts. You'd appreciate this. I mean, cops are cheap. They love free coffee. They love donuts. I stopped at Dunkin' Donuts. I bought an assorted dozen. I bought a box of Joe. I go, and there's so much more to the story, but I go to the mounted unit. And this guy looked like General Custer. He's in his riding pants. He's got his shoes up, his boots up on the desk. And I'm apologizing and giving him coffee. And he goes, son, obviously you fucked up somewhere, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So I go, oh, all right, I got to go. And he goes, no, I want to hear the whole story. Then he called in his whole day tour into his office. And he goes, guys, have some coffee and donut. Detective Ferrari wants to tell us a story. And I had to go through the story all over again in front of them. So I went up to the precinct later that day, and the desk officer had a good laugh. I go, did you know him? He goes, no. He goes, I just looked up who the CO was, wrote it down, and sent you into the lion's den. So,
oh shit,
it kind of came full circle. I went from getting conned all the time, to conning young cops, and then ultimately I got conned later in my career.
Oh my God, that's a great story, man. That's shit. God, there's so many. They reminds me of so many stories doing shit like that and get. I was, we got our new, did you call your computers in the car at any point MDTs, mobile digital terminals? Yeah. So I don't know how I found this out. I think somebody taught us in training, you could do this, to put out a crime broadcast. In other words, you could put in, I figured out if you put in voice / and then certain units, the dispatcher would repeat that over the air, to those units. So then I go, I wonder if we put voice / and then I put in a bunch of, I'm down in a station near Compton, and I put these units from Malibu Station, and I said, 1019, go to the watch commander immediately. I put like 6 units in there. And then I hit the button, and all of a sudden I heard the dispatcher go, 111, 110, 101, go see the watch commander immediately. And I'm going, oh, man, we are laughing. And of course, all these units run into the station. They run to the watch commander. I didn't call you guys. And so I started doing that obviously much too often. And then they had brought in tech guys to backtrack and find out who did this. And they narrowed down to me and another guy. And we had to we had to do training on this for 6 months. We had to go into, when they did the MDT training, we had to go and give a lecture on how you shouldn't do that. But anyways,
very, very similar, right?
Yeah, but I thought we were scot free, right? And then, but that watch commander, he got on it. He goes, there's got to be a way through technicians to find out who initiated this.
Yeah, there's always a digital footprint. Even back then, there was a digital footprint.
Because this is like the 90 or something.
How to trace that to which terminal to which vehicle.
Yeah. So it was crazy, I don't know why. Maybe because of my dad. I just loved getting stolen cars, right? Stolen. What they call them in New York? We call them rolling stolens, right? We want them occupied rolling. Did you have any term for that, or?
We called them GLAs, grand larceny auto.
But there was a difference between if it was abandoned and you recovered it, and then if it was rolling.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then we used to call them fresh kills. That meant if you got a car before it was stolen, but there wasn't an alarm on it yet.
Yeah.
You caught you get those on the midnights a lot of times where they just swiped a car. The owner.
That's right.
You would call the owner up and they would say, "My car's in the driveway," and oh shit, no, it's not. We actually have it.
Yeah, so we bordered Long Beach and South Central, and Long Beach police had a policy, maybe because they had. Maybe through domestics or, that stolen cars that weren't really, so they had a policy that they would wait 48 hours before they put it in the system. Well, all the crooks knew that. So they would steal cars out of Long Beach right and left because they know they wouldn't come back stolen for 48 hours. And so we had the same thing.
Long Beach is the port, right?
Yeah. So you were there, right? You go there for stolen cars and stuff, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Did you guys do a lot of shipping cases? Or?
Oh no, I didn't because I was just a street cop. But I'm sure our auto theft guys did. Oh, and you know what? Where the Port Authority was really was LAPD's area. You probably worked with LAPD, right, at the port? It probably wasn't Long Beach, I don't think.
Well, no, we had one case where our cars were stolen in New York, taken out to Newark, put in shipping containers, and then railed out to Long Beach.
You
and
got to
then
be
they were
kidding
getting
me.
No, and then they were getting shipped to Shanghai. We didn't, to my knowledge, we dealt more with that case. It was more customs
Yeah.
that we used to get some
Yeah.
of the cars back, because when we took the case down, some of the cars were still on ships. So
Yeah.
we had the ships not to hand the cars over when they got to Shanghai. So we got some of the cars came back.
So, we would get, of course, before, and you probably did too. Did you work the streets before you had any computers in the car?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, when I got hired, they had MDTs, but it was only like one, maybe two cars a police station or precinct had them, and guys would fight over it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until like the early '90s when you started seeing, then there was 4 or 5 of them per car.
Yeah, so to explain to people, before these computers, if we saw what we thought was a stolen car, and we didn't pull it over and we just wanted to run the plate, we had to run the plate and it would tell us if it was stolen or not.
Right.
But with the advent of these, you can't burn out the dispatcher, man. So you can't be running every damn plate. They're going to kill you. So, you got to pick and choose. You had to be smart, and you had to be kind of crafty to know what you were doing. But then when you got the MDTs, man, you could just be running plates all day, all night. And I imagine now with
It's
these
nickel slots.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
just go in a
nickel slots.
parking
You just
lot
sit
and
there.
pop. Yeah. So you'll like this story. So me and my buddy, we called it a hat trick, right? So we got it. We're working the midnight shift down in South Central, and we get a guy with a gun, and then we booked that guy, and then we went back on the street, and we got some guys with coke, so we got dope, and now we said we got to get a stolen car. So then we found one in an alley, come back stolen. So I go, man, let's just sit on it. It's like 5 in the morning, and so I get out of the car, because we're in like a parking lot looking down an alley. So I get out of the car to take a leak. And so I'm taking a leak, and I looked around the corner, and they were just hopping in. And I turned to my buddy and go, all right, they're getting in. He thought I was screwing with him. He goes, holy shit, they are. And then we were off to the races, But, I just found it fun, getting stolen cars. How about you?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, we used to, one of the things we used to do is one of the precincts I worked in, and then later when I was in auto loss, we used to cruise the short stay motel parking lots at least twice a day. And you'd run through there, and you'd gobble up all the plates, and you'd run all the plates, and every now and then one would come back a hit, and then you'd set up. You couldn't really trust. I learned that early. A lot of the guys that worked in the motels were scumbags and would give the room the heads up that, hey, the cops know that camera you showed up in is stolen. We would set up on it. We'd sit down the block with a set of binoculars, or there was a park in one of them. We would actually pull into the woods of the park and just kind of sit on it and wait till it came out. One time I was sitting, this is when I was in autocrime, I was sitting on a stolen car up by Pleasant Avenue in Harlem off the FDR Drive, and it was this Toyota, and it was the winter time, so we got there we found it about 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's going on until about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. It's the winter time, so the sun's going down, and I'm saying to myself, I'm having this discussion with my partner. I go, we could do, I says, we can either tow it and pick up an hour or two overtime tonight, just towing it and dusting it for prints. I said, do you want to roll the dice? It's near the projects. There's probably kids using it. You want to come back tomorrow, and maybe it's still there in the neighborhood. We'll roll the dice. And he goes, I said, let me just take a ride by it. He goes, all right. We take a ride by it, and we get close, and I see white socks. And I go, what the fuck? I get out of the car. The guy was a junkie. He was sleeping in the car the whole time.
You got to be kidding me.
No, he was in the car. Like, we were out there 6-7 hours. He was in there. We knocked on the door, woke him up, and locked him up.
Yeah, and people might think it's weird. Oh, you think that's fun getting stolen cars? But you know what? First of all of us in this country specifically, we just, we can't wait to get our first car. Our car is our thing. It's our personal thing.
Oh, yeah.
And so it also was very fulfilling to get someone's car back, to tell them, hey, we got your car. You can go pick it up here. And so to return somebody's car was kind of a thing. Like, I would appreciate if somebody got my car back and it wasn't, stripped and done, and And so it was kind of fulfilling too if you could give somebody a decent car back to the owner, right?
Yeah, well, for me, it was personal. So my first car that I purchased a new Hyundai for like $7,000, whatever a new Hyundai was in 1987.
Yeah.
And the day I graduated from the police academy, and parents were there. We come back to the Bronx. So my parents, we didn't have a lot of money. I grew up relatively poor, and my father gave me like $20, and he said, "Well, go up to the corner and get Chinese food and drop off the film." Remember back in the old days,
Yes.
you get a roll of film and you would take it to like a place.
Yeah.
So my neighborhood in the Bronx there was never parking. And so you always had a double park on the main drag. So I double parked in front of the photo place. And this is literally 2 blocks from my house. I mean, back then it was still a nice neighborhood. I double park, leave the car running, the Hyundai, and I walk in to the photo mat and I go, "I just graduated the police academy. I should really know better." No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I turn around and I start walking out and I see a kid with a hoodie getting into my car.
Oh,
I
gee.
said, "Oh, shit." So now I just gotten my gun, right? I just gotten my 38 Smith & Wesson large frame. I hadn't gotten my off-duty yet, so I'm carrying a cannon. I'm carrying
my
a 6-shot large frame 38 in my pants, right?
Yeah.
Just out of the academy. Pull the thing out. I shove it in the kid's face and get the fuck out of my car, right? He looks up, throws the thing in reverse. Now I holster the gun and I'm fighting with him. He takes off with my Hyundai down Tremont Avenue.
What
and
the
I'm just standing there like, oh shit. So I have no police experience other than the academy. I do what I see in the movies. I take out my shield and ID card. I flag down an old man driving a Ford LTD. I go, "Police emergency, I need your car." He goes, "My son's on the job, get in."
Oh my God,
I
that's
jump in a
great.
car with an old man, and he's chasing my car down Tremont Avenue in Throgs Neck. And I'm saying to myself, I'm still on probation. Like, what have I gotten myself involved in? P.S. We lose the kid, and he looked very familiar to me. So I walk into the precinct, my tail between my legs. I explain what happened to the desk officer, and they weren't really like too sympathetic. He threw me a complaint report, which we call a 61. He goes, "Well, fill it out." I never filled out a 61 before. I just graduated. So who, what, where, when, why.
Yeah.
Embarrassing details of how I lost my car.
Oh,
He says,
shit.
"Listen, kid." He goes, I'll put your plate out over the air every hour, every half hour. We'll try to get your car back." I said, "All right." So I go home like 2 hours later. My father's like, "Where's the Chinese food?" I'm like, "Well, this is before cell phones,
Yeah.
So about like that night, 7, 8 o'clock, the precinct calls me. They said, "Come over. We got your car. We got the guy."
Yeah.
So I go into the precinct. It was a kid I said he looked familiar. It was a kid I went to middle school with who
Jeez.
became a crackhead. Ultimately, he went to jail for other things. But he was a crackhead. He saw me get out of the car, jumped in, sold the radio to my car, but I got the car back in relatively good condition minus the radio. But it taught me a lot about life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, just because you're a cop doesn't mean you can still be the victim of a crime. And
Absolutely,
that day
yeah.
forward, I was like, I had a hard on for anybody stealing cars.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my car in California stolen too. My Blazer, I'll never forget it. But all it was there was a pile of glass when I came. What the heck? My car's gone. But,
You had
California.
butchers, they broke the window.
Yeah. The now, how about you? When I was working patrol in South Central, there was there's a couple different makes of cars that were very easy to steal. I'm thinking Honda Accords.
Hondas.
Yeah, because they could just, as a matter of fact, if people don't know, they could just break the steering column, as in your book you tell, and all you had to stick was a screwdriver in there. You could start that thing right up.
Well, yeah, Hondas, all you needed really was a screwdriver. I saw guys steal Toyota Camrys or Hondas with, remember the old days, like the old scissors, the big scissors?
Yes, and they could stick them in there.
They would jam that in there and just break the ignition. The old GMs were very easy. The long neck GMs on Chevy Impalas, Cadillacs, Buicks. It had a long steering column. And if you crack that, there's a couple of pins that you just push up and down. And when you break that, number one, it unlocks the steering wheel.
That's
and
right.
Number two, when you push and pull, it'll start the car. But the funny thing is, like, car thieves would steal these General Motors products. They would take it someplace. they would change the VIN number, and then they had to replace the steering column because it was broken.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like the tip off to me that the car was bad was you'd have a car that was stolen with a blue interior, so it would have a blue neck steering column.
Oh, okay.
They just would go to a junkyard and get a red neck steering column, so you would see a car with a blue interior with a red steering column. So it's one of two things: the car is bad, or it was stolen once before and the owner replaced it.
Right.
So a lot of times,
Yeah.
as soon as I would see a different color steering column, I'd have like a big shit-eating grin, because that usually meant there's a 50-50 chance there's something up with this car.
Yeah, that's right.
Another thing with the old GMs, with general, well, all cars, but like I was fixated on GMs, the federal government mandated through National Traffic Highway Safety in 1986, every new vehicle had to have the third brake light in the back of the car.
That's right.
So if you're sitting in the back seat of an old Chevy, Cadillac, any car, right in back of you was that third light that sat in the back window. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So in the back window of cars, especially in northern climates, you would have the defogger lines, right? And there would be a cutout. So the defogger lines used to go straight across. With that third light, the defogger lines would stop and go down. So I would pull over a car if it had the third light on it, and the defogger lines went down, and they tagged as at 84, 85. Like, no, it's got the third light and the windows match. So then the bad guys, what they would do is they would pull the light out of the window, but the defogger lines would still go down, and there'd be a hole there. So we still knew the car was bad.
Oh, it's amazing little tricks that you see, and going back to the column. So when we were rolling around Compton area, we would just look. We stopped at the light and look over and see like a rag or a shirt over their steering column, and that
bandana,
yeah, a bandana. That was always the blue bandana. The Crips had it, and the Bloods had the red.
Oh, one key.
One key.
So you'd see like a bunch of scumbags in a car, and there'd be one key. Like, come on, you don't have your house keys, you know.
Yeah. And half the time it might be just little gangbangers could hardly see over the steering wheel, get behind them, and then the chase would be on. Crazy. Yeah.
Oh, especially teenagers, they would have that oh shit look.
Yeah, they would
They
definitely
would just look at you.
Yeah.
I remember one time late in my career, I'm approaching 40, or I was in my early 40s. I'm a grown man. I don't look at myself as 40.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was me and two other guys. We were in like a Mitsubishi Montero, so we're a little higher off the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm driving, and a car full of teenagers pulls up alongside us, and they weren't even paying attention to us. And the driver spit out the window, and I must have made a face.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in plain clothes, but I must have made like a face, and the kid's looking at me. I'm old enough to be his father, and he goes, sorry. And the light changes, and he pulls off. And the guy, we had Palm Pilots by then.
Yeah.
I turned to the guy next to me. I go, run that fucking plate. It's stolen.
Yeah.
He goes, how do you know? I go, he said, sorry.
Sorry.
I said, just run the plate. And it came back stolen, and then we boxed them, and they were lost. And they went into a street with a cul-de-sac. There was nowhere to go.
Yeah.
We just kind of pulled them over. We just dragged them out of the car. But there was tricks of the trade with that.
Yeah, that was fun. It was fun to be, because it took. You weren't just out there handling calls. You were hunting down these crooks, and you had to kind of use your brain. You had to be a little bit smart, to do that. So, did you eventually? I know it took you 5 years. Did you ever get an inside guy in there? Friends with any of the guys you started interacting with before you got pulled into the division, or?
What do you mean?
When you went to auto theft division, did you have to apply and then interview, or? Did you
Yeah, it was a whole
that?
process. Yeah. So once I was in auto larceny, you filled that with, every now and then you'd find out there were openings.
Yeah.
And what you would do is so to get into auto crime or any specialized unit in the NYPD that falls under the umbrella of organized crime, it's a lengthy, it was like 20 pages, basically. How many arrests you made, how many citations, were you ever in trouble, your sick record. That's another thing they look at. Not only, if you've a disciplinary problem, are you banging in a lot, are you taking days, you're burning up too much vacation time. So they look at all that. They do a credit check to make sure you don't have financial problems.
Shit.
And that's the reason you're trying to get in there, to rub elbows with people. Oh yeah, and then every year once you get in, there's a survey. You have to fill out every year any financial changes in your life, your marital. Yeah, did you have kids? They want to know basically everything. So once that's all said and done, then they start calling you out. So our main office, or I used to call it the mothership, was out in Queens, the borough of Queens. I worked in the Bronx, and they would call us out there one at a time, and it was an all-day event. Like they'd give you a tour of the place, and then basically you would sit down. There'd usually be a couple of detectives, a couple of supervisors, and they'd just start firing questions at you. And they would fuck with you just to see how you would handle adversity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how you would handle getting your balls broken. And I had already, I had 10 years in by the time I got there, so I knew how the game was played. So, I was fortunate. I was thrilled, when I went in there, and it was. I mean, my whole NYPD career was great, but that was that last 10 was the icing on the cake.
Yeah. So you were at auto larceny. That was like in the station already, or?
Auto larceny turned out of the borough. So
okay.
The NYPD is run like McDonald's.
Yeah.
Think of the NYPD as McDonald's. So One Police Plaza is Hamburger U. That's where everything, policy, everything comes out of. Every borough, right, has a precinct called the borough. And that borough has a borough commander who reports back to One Police Plaza. And basically the borough runs, so the Bronx had 12 precincts. All 12 precincts had to answer to the borough.
Oh, okay.
The borough has to answer to One Police Plaza.
Okay.
So at the borough level, they had specialized units that turned out of the borough. They had a DUI unit that covered the entire borough, auto loss, the entire truancy, the whole borough. Peddler unit that went after the guys selling bullshit, Rolex wristwatches. So there was specialized units that turned out of the borough task force.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and then were you turned down for a while? Like, did it go on a few years of you applying and then you were denied?
No, it was actually no, and they really didn't start opening things up till about 96, 97. No, I got in on the first try.
So you had to wait because it was kind of locked down. Like it was a freeze on bringing people in.
Yeah. There's no.
The turnover is no turnover, really, right? Yeah.
No, nobody. The only time people leave auto crime is they get promoted.
Yep.
Right. They get promoted. So they want to go someplace else. The guy is in there. This isn't my thing. I want to go somewhere else, which is rare. And then you've got the dead wood. And in OCCB, they call it the train. And when guys don't pick up their game, you'll get the warning. The train's coming in a couple of months. You might want to pick up your game or you're going to be on that train.
Yeah.
And the train could take you anywhere. You could go from working in a specialized unit to working in a shitty precinct on the second floor in the detective squad handling guys that beat up their wives and bounce check. That happened to a guy I worked with. There was a guy I worked with. He really should have never have been in there, but he got in there on a contract. And
what do you mean a contract?
He really wasn't. He knew somebody.
Okay, gotcha.
He knew somebody to get in there, but he was not a heavy contract. It was
it was
not
weak.
Enough to protect him.
Yeah.
It was enough to get him in there. It wasn't enough to carry him. And I got paired with him, and I basically was keeping him afloat. And my sergeant knew. And my sergeant used to, warn him. And then one time the sergeant told me, he goes, listen, I'm just going to give you the heads up. They're going to launch him, and I don't know where. So, and I talked to him, and he says, whatever it is, it is. Couldn't motivate this guy.
Wow.
So he lived upstate, and he didn't have a bad commute to the Bronx. So to punish him, they sent him out to Queens. So they doubled his commute, and he had to pay a toll. So now he's working in the Queens office of auto crime, which it's a pain in the ass. And I went out there one day to log in overtime. I saw him. We're shooting the shit. And he's got his feet up on the desk. It was at night. He was working a night shift. He's got his feet up on the desk, and he's goofing around. And I said, I don't want to say his name. I go, dude, you already got launched once. I said, the next time they're going to throw you on your fucking head. I said, you should really, whatever it is, it is. They launched him from auto crime to Brooklyn South narcotics. So, I mean, for your listeners that don't know the 5 boroughs, he probably had a 60 to 70-mile commute one way a day.
Oh, geez.
And it's not highway driving. It's driving through the 5 boroughs, multiple tolls. So he's probably paying $10, $15 a day in tolls, and his commute on a good day is an hour and 40 minutes one way.
God.
So he was bitching and crying and moaning and filed a grievance, and eventually they sent him to a detective squad in the Bronx closer to home, but they call it highway therapy.
Yeah, we called it freeway therapy. Exactly the same thing. So freeway therapy.
Yeah, they're gonna send you as far away from your house with as many tolls as possible to teach you a lesson.
I went through that when I was with recruitment. I'm the sergeant, and this one guy, he had a special needs kid and everything, so he had pretty flexible working recruitment, but he wasn't cutting the thing, and then they told me to. They really wanted to bounce him, find out where he wants to go, and I'm going, hey, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine, So then the lieutenant kept calling me, and I didn't tell you to fire him up. I want to know where he's going to go because I want to get rid of him. I go, I think he's going to step it up, and I told the guy, man, you got a good thing here, man. Just clear these cases. You only have to clear so many cases. And he wouldn't do it, though, and just like you say, and then he was gone, man, and then he's probably
I've heard
bitching.
From guys like that, and you can't motivate it. And I never understood that. I get that not everybody was go like I was.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that indicator light goes on and you dash.
Yeah.
And it's telling you, and they're telling you. I mean, they would always give you the heads up. They'd give you a couple of warnings, and like my sergeant told me, he goes, they're gonna hurt him. Talk to this guy, and I couldn't motivate him.
I don't know why. And you tell them it's coming too, man. The falls are right there, man. You don't have to go over. Yeah, like it's not. I don't know whether they don't think it's going to happen or they just can't make the change. And here they're in a coveted position that not everybody can get to, and it gives them
guys would kill to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, you wouldn't have this freeway bullshit and paying tolls, and then you had the opportunity, but man, and you just watch these guys do that. That's weird that it happens. Yeah. That's crazy.
Personality trait, I guess.
Yeah. So what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Let me know. I thought this was interesting, right? When you talk about the auto theft division, that they called the main place the Kennel Central. Is that what they call it? Kennel Central?
No. So in auto crime, you have the main office in Queens was the Kennel Base.
The Kennel Base. That's right. I love that.
That was the main kennel, and every team. Every borough had a team. So the Bronx office, you had two teams out of the satellite office. The Bronx team was known as the Greyhounds. The Manhattan team was the Setters. I think the Brooklyn North team was the Shepherds. You had the Akitas. I know one of the Queens teams was the Dingoes. And the reason each team had a dog's name is when you would come over so you're out and about, and we're on, our frequency was to go to the main base. So when we wanted to run a plate or run a VIN number for shipping and salvage to see the VIN history, I would get on the radio and I would radio our main office. I would go Kennel Base and Setter John. So everybody knows Setter John works in the Bronx office. So, but it was funny because then the inside guys, they were called the Poodles. It's like every team had a dog's name.
Yeah, that is so cool.
More flattering than others.
Yeah, that's I don't want to be on the Poodles, man. I mean, I want to be a Doberman. Yeah, that's crazy. And so then what about, there was a satellite office too, right? Is that in the Bronx you were talking about?
There were two satellite offices. You had the Bronx office had the Manhattan and Bronx team, and then Staten Island had their own office because it was just so far.
Yeah, it sounded like I would want to be at the satellite office because there's a place, you talked about a place inside like Kennel Central, right, where there was really hectic, right? The phones ringing, it's going crazy all the time. If you were there, you're expected to answer the phones. And
yeah, you come in. So Auto Crime Division was on the grounds of Creedmoor Psychiatric Center.
That's what it was weird that I read that, yeah.
Yeah, they were doing lobotomies there and shock therapy. I mean, not while we were there, obviously, but it's a large, sprawling grounds. And we were in a building. It looked like something like post-Soviet. It's a concrete building, no aesthetics, and long hallways. It looked like something out of The Shining. And when we were on the third floor. Down the second floor, I think, was warrants, and then the first floor was Queens Narcotics. So you went to access. There was an outside staircase that would freeze in the winter, so you had to be careful you didn't break your ass. A lot of people got hurt going up those stairs.
Oh, shit.
You go in, and the first door was the calls for service office, and they had all these computers and books to look up different VIN numbers, different systems to run plates in Canada. I mean, they had all sorts of shit. And there were 2 or 3 guys that worked there on the day tour and the 4 to 12 shift. I think midnights you only had 2 guys working. But like you said, if you were out there logging in overtime and 2 or 3 of those guys were busy, you were expected to pick up the phones and help them out. And I really didn't hang around there much because no good could come going out to the main office because you would get grabbed for things. So you had the administrative lieutenant that ran everything, the training, the court notifications. Our integrity control officer was there. He's a lieutenant that's his job is to monitor police corruption at the precinct level. He was also in charge of the overtime slips. So really the only time I went out there was to log in overtime, and I was in and out of there like shit through a goose. Like a lot of guys like, hey, sit down. I was like, get the fuck, call me. And I was out of there because you would go in there and they'd be short a body or 2 and there's a parade coming up.
And they grab you.
I need you. Yep. You're going to that parade day after tomorrow. I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of guys never saw that. And I was like, why do you hang out in there? Like, just get in and out, I would just get in that first office and get out.
Out of sight, out of mind. I love the story. Everybody get this book. You got to get especially you coppers, you can't put this thing down. Tell me about, you had the crazy lieutenant or whatever, and when he was in a bad mood, they used the nautical flags to signal people when stay away.
Well, he wasn't crazy. He was a very intelligent man. He just, he had mood swings. He had a genius IQ, and I think he kind of gave up a part of his personality for that.
Yeah.
And when he got mad, man, I mean, he was not a guy to toy with. And he could ruin your career. So when you would walk in, like I said, that calls for service office was on the right-hand side. To the left, there was they would have flags, different color flags. So a green flag meant it was cool. Yellow flag was caution. Red was he was on the warpath. And they had like a black one, like just get the fuck, like just turn around, drop your shit off and get out. He caught on to it. He actually thought it was funny after a while.
That's good. Hey, I got a message from Patrick Davies. He's at the gym there in New York, and he says, I'm at the gym talking to a retired detective named Charlie Rizzuto. You know him? He knows T, he said.
Nope.
Don't know him.
Don't know Charlie Rizzuto, and I don't know who T is.
I don't either. That's okay. So I would have liked to have been, definitely in the satellite office because, like you say, you're out of sight, out of mind. It was probably a calmer. Oh, he said he knows Vic from JTTF.
I never worked in Joint Terrorist Task Force.
Oh, Patrick, they probably don't know that that's your pseudonym. That's that's the problem.
Yeah, I write under a pen name, guys. But
that's a pen name, Patrick. I'm sorry. Yeah, Vic Ferrari is not real. Yeah,
no, that's not my real name.
Believe me, and I forget all the time. I think it is. Sorry, brother. I said Patrick on a wild goose chase, but I'll talk to him off camera. But I would want to be out of sight, out of mind, man. It's probably calmer, right? When you're at the satellite office, you kind of do your own thing, or.
It is, and we would get the heads up a lot of times.
Yeah.
The commanding officer or the ICO, they would sign out where they were going. So the main office a lot of times would give us the heads up. Hey, the ICO signed out, the CO, they're heading over there. So we knew, don't have your feet up. You know what I mean? Look busy. You know what I mean?
Because I'm sure they thought
on paperwork.
They probably thought, oh, these guys, man, they're out of the line of fire. They think they probably wanted to catch you guys screwing off, I imagine.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Like, our CO never was like that. The guy whose job was there were 2 guys there that were ICOs. Their job was to monitor corruption and be a pain in the ass. Yeah. Those 2 guys skated through their entire careers, and then when they became in charge of doing that, they thought the same thing about us. So yeah, they were a pain in the ass. They would try to show up unannounced, but we always got the heads up they were coming. The problem was like borough inspections or internal affairs. Yeah. You never get the heads up.
Oh, no.
You spot them in the parking lot or something, or someone knows someone that worked there at one time that will get a courtesy call. Like, hey, inspections is going to be snooping around the next couple of days. Like every now and then someone would have a brother-in-law or something that worked in one of these places, and we would get the heads up.
Yeah, and how come, and going back to these VIN numbers, I'm just thinking because a lot of these crooks, they probably just, when they switch VINs, they probably just do the initial one on the dashboard, right? But there's like several places on in a car engine block where the VIN number is located.
Yeah, a guy that's not a professional, right? Like, so, I mean, even back in the old days, before the government got involved and mandated auto manufacturers to put these NISTA stickers all over the car.
What are they called?
General NISTA, National Highway Traffic
Oh, yeah,
Safety.
yeah, right, yeah. NHTs, whatever.
That's what you see, like, Congress will designate certain high theft vehicles, which back then was like the Hondas and the Toyotas.
Yeah.
And all the major component parts was supposed to have these stickers on there.
Right.
Now, like a guy that blows a motor on his car, and he doesn't want to buy a new car, so what he's going to do is go out and steal one and change the VIN number. Yeah, he's only going to change the public VIN and maybe the door sticker, right? Yeah. But like guys, professionals that are doing it day in and day out, they would try to make the stickers. They would try to alter the stickers.
Oh, okay.
They had tap and die sets.
Oh,
so
shit,
they would
okay.
grind down engine numbers and restamp them, or like on foreign products on the firewall, you would have a 17-character VIN stamped on the firewall. A lot of times they would either A, cut it out and then tack weld a firewall piece in from another vehicle, sand it and paint it, or weld one over it, or cover it with Bondo and restamp it. I mean, some of these guys were really good. Like I sometimes would have to cut out a section of the firewall and bring it back and use acid to bring up the old numbers that would come through. Yeah, they would grind down the numbers, so I would have to use acid to bring it up. Then they came up with this later on, this technology, which I preferred a lot more than the acid. It was a solution of mineral spirits and iron filings. And what you would do is you would spray it over a piece of metal. You'd have to cut it out off the vehicle. You would spray it over it and then put magnets above it. And the magnets would pull the iron filings, the metal filings, through the mineral spirits and sometimes spell out the characters of the VIN.
Jeez. And where would they get a good VIN from a demolition yard or a salvage yard?
Yeah, they would go. Yeah, they would go to the salvage auctions. So it was one or two ways. It was three ways.
Okay. They
would either go to salvage auctions and purchase cars close, try to get the same color, try to get the same year. Or if it's, a guy that owns a car or a guy that owns a fleet of vans for a company, and the motor burns out, he just takes all the VINs off of one and has someone steal another and just clone it. And then the third way, and this became really big just before I retired, is say you were in California, I would call you up and tell you, do me a favor, take a photograph of a vehicle identification number from a car in Los Angeles. I need a Cadillac Escalade 2020 black and color with these options. So you would find one in a movie theater parking lot and you would take a VIN. Then what I would do is I would clone that VIN. I would know a paper guy. I would get a VIN kit of all the stickers and stuff that looks close enough. And then I would steal that car in New York and put all the phony VIN numbers created from what you sent me in California. But those guys would get caught because with Carfax, how is this car in two different places? I'm seeing that the car is registered in New York. It came in on a bogus Pennsylvania title, and I got the same car that's registered in Compton. Yeah. Can't be. Two VINs can't be in the same place at the same time.
Wow, that's how they would get caught. Wow, these guys, man, they were very sophisticated to the point where a street cop is never going to be able to find that out unless something really ticks.
We would get calls sometimes. Like some cops would know, they know something's not right with the car, but they don't really
can't
have
figure it out.
Yeah. So they would call us and give us the VIN number, or they would actually bring the guy into the station house. But some cops see, and that, you walk a fine line with that, because a lot of these guys, these cops, like myself, when I was young and ambitious, you bring a guy in for a car and you're like, oh, I think the VIN number is underneath the fender. And then they crease a guy's fender. They'll unbolt it with some bullshit tool set. And it's not, they're wrong, the car is fine, and then they crease the guy's fender or scratch the guy's firewall, and people don't want to hear it. You just screwed up my car.
Yeah.
They wind up getting sued. So there was a lot of young cops that I used to, like I said, that was me a couple of years ago, and I would tell them, listen, you can get sued. I mean, you can get yourself in hot water doing this. Like, call us.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that's crazy. What about you had a guy who was like a construction guy, and he started finding all these heavy construction equipment that was stolen, right? Because they think they can just leave it out in the open on these sites, and probably had no fear of anybody checking on them, right?
Yeah, heavy equipment. I mean, I dabbled in heavy. That wasn't my thing, but
Yeah.
I made a couple of arrests with heavy equipment. Later on, I worked with a guy, Irish kid off the boat from Ireland. We used to call him Seamus. That's all he would do. And with heavy equipment, some of it is stolen and it's shipped to third world countries. Like I
Oh.
had an arrest. It was a Sunday, and it was a LoJack hit, and a LoJack beacon was beeping in this parking lot in the 4-6 on in the Bronx on Webster Avenue. So we go into this parking lot, and there's an Ingersoll Ram compressor, and was stolen like 2 nights before in New Jersey. So I'm asking the kid that works there, and I don't know, I don't remember who brought it in. He's giving me this big bullshit story, right?
Yeah.
So I call a towing company and I have them tow it out. And as I'm breaking his balls trying to figure out who brought this thing in, I look in the back and what looks like to me 2 more Ingersoll Ram compressors. So I walk back there and I go, I run them and they're both stolen. I says, first of all, you get
Holy
locked
shit.
up because there's
Yeah.
no way you could tell me there's 3 of these things in here and you didn't know. It's two Cuban guys, and then all of a sudden his memory, it's 2 Cuban guys. They're paying us $100 a month. I said, all right, here's my phone number. So I took all 3 compressors.
Yeah.
And it was the Ingersoll Ram compressors that power like the
Oh,
lights
yeah.
on construction sites or jackhammers.
Yeah.
And I gave him my card, and I said, the second these 2 friggin' guys come back,
Yeah.
call me. He goes, all right. So the next day, it was on Monday, I come into work, and like 10 o'clock in the morning, the kid's on the phone. He goes, they're here. I said, what did they pull up in? And he says, they pulled up in a black Lincoln Navigator with Jersey plates. I said, all right. So me and my partner jump in the car. We go tearing up Webster Avenue. By the time we get up there, I guess the guys knew that A, they figured out that the compressors weren't there, and B, I guess the kid either tipped him off, but I doubt it because he was deadly afraid of me. Probably knew by his demeanor that something wasn't
up.
right.
Yeah.
So they had already, by the time we pulled up, they were sitting in the Navigator probably trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
When they saw us pull up in that unmarked car, they took off. So now I'm in a pursuit, and I'm going down Webster Avenue doing 70, 80 miles an hour. They got on the Cross Bronx Expressway, and we lost them going into New Jersey. So
Yeah.
they got away with it, but we got the 3 Ingersoll Ram compressors. But some of that stuff gets shipped overseas. Like we used to laugh and say we didn't know how the Dominican Republic wouldn't sync with all the cars and heavy equipment, but a lot of that stuff gets shipped to Nigeria, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, wherever you could think of where someone knows someone that wants something in another country, they'll ship. A lot of it is insurance fraud done by the mob. So what the mob will do is say for argument's sake, they have a backhoe and it's insured. What they'll do is they'll report it stolen, they'll get compensated for it, and keep it, and just move it to another construction site. And most pieces of heavy equipment don't have license plates, right? The VIN numbers on them aren't really VIN numbers. They're numbers stamped in obscure places that are covered by dirt. No one's really looking at it. And they're usually on private property, right? So it's not like you have access to these things. Sometimes they're in fenced-in yards and stuff. But this kid, Seamus, to his credit, he would watch them, and the second they touched the street and they were doing something, let me take a look at this, and he would find out that ABC Construction put in a claim on this thing 3 years ago, and they still have it.
Oh, my God.
So they're double dipping. They're reporting it stolen, or they're lending it out to their friend on another construction site, and they've already been compensated for it.
Hey, retired Chief Patrick Jordan just piped in. He's watching. He says hi. Thanks, Chief, for showing up. That's great. Did you ever have to take some trips? Maybe to some of these countries to investigate these things?
No, the furthest I went was Pennsylvania and New Jersey. People laugh like, "Oh, did you get to travel?" Yeah, we drove out to Trenton once, and another time we went out to Pennsylvania. There were a couple of guys in my office that got to travel. There was one guy in our office. Funny story. And I think this is before China took over from the UK with Hong Kong.
Yeah.
The authorities in Hong Kong somehow got a hold of our number and wanted us to get them a police report of a stolen vehicle that somehow showed up in Hong Kong. So this detective, who later became a sergeant, got on the phone with them and convinced them that, if you need me to testify and blah, 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 blah. Well, they took him up on the offer and they agreed to fly him out. So everybody used to break his balls and call him Hong Kong Johnny, because he finagled a phone call, had nothing to do with this car, but he just happened to answer the phone and finagled a trip to Hong Kong. So that's how he got his name, Hong Kong Johnny.
Oh, that's a good story. Oh my God! But you did get out to L.A. to the port, right, on a couple of cases?
No, I've never been out to.
Oh, I thought you ended up going out
there.
There.
But
not on a job.
No,
Okay.
No.
So, like we used to have certain tells, like, we would in Compton area, we would look for San Diego license plate frames because they would come across the border and steal cars in San Diego. So that would be a clue. That'd be a stolen car usually. Now, remember, you were talking about back in the day when you would watch for these Z plates for the rental cars, right?
Rentals.
Yeah, but they changed that, huh?
That stopped. Yeah, well, that stopped in the early 90s because in Miami, German tourists were either returning a car or had just gotten out of the Miami airport and they had the Z plate and they got lost. And apparently the neighborhood around the Miami International Airport was rough. And a bunch of bad guys saw a bunch of tourists with a Z plate and they ran them off the road. I know that the tourists were killed.
I remember that case,
and as a result of that, the rental car companies stopped putting Z's on the plates.
Yeah, darn it. And then you wouldn't know with the rental cars. But they worked with you guys, right? Because you guys recovered a lot of their stolen cars?
Yeah, so a lot of the security directors of these rental car agencies are retired cops.
Yeah.
So early on, I remember, like, as a precinct cop, they would send out, they're called hot sheets. Avis would send them Hertz, and it would be a sheet of paper with a list of license plates, VIN numbers, colors, and makes of the cars. So we would look for them. Actually, funny story, I'm in auto crime, and I work with this 6'5", 300-pound Chinese cop who I used to call Bok Choy, my humble Asian sidekick. And he used to refer to me as Lo Fan, which means evil white ghost. And we acquired Bok Choy in my unit because we needed Chinese cops to decipher a wiretap in Cantonese and Mandarin. So when that case was taken down, he stayed with us, but he had no experience in auto theft, really, knew nothing about stolen cars. So he was always looking at me for help, and I couldn't help him all the time. I would tell him, listen, you got to do this on your own. So they were getting on him about finding stolen cars, and he was panicking. And I said, call up the rent-a-car company. I gave him a phone number. I gave him a couple of phone numbers. I go, call these agencies up. Get the hot sheets. I mean, this is very, like, sophomoric work.
Yeah.
Just get these license plates. Once you get the license plates, first run them, see which ones are stolen, which have been recovered.
Yeah.
The ones that are still active, run them through this system for parking tickets. If one car is getting a bunch of parking tickets in a neighborhood, that means he's in that neighborhood. He's getting double parking tickets. He's getting tickets, right?
That's right.
So he comes up to me with a couple of cars, but one in particular is getting a ton of parking tickets near a motel near JFK Airport. I said, all right, let's go out there. So me, him, and another detective, three of us pile into a car. We go out there, car's sitting in the lot, in the parking lot. So we come up with a plan. I go, when they get out, it's probably two people. When they get in the car, come at them head on, box them in, we'll jump out, we'll pull out the passenger, we'll cuff them up. Okay. Two young people, a guy and a girl, get out. They get into the car. We pull up. Me and Bok Choy are on one side of the car. We just happen to grab the female. On the other side of the car, the driver is now in a fight with the third detective.
Oh,
so
geez.
I leave Bok Choy. I run over to the other car. And he's a smaller guy, but he was tough. And he's putting up a fight. So by the time I get around the car, he just happened to break free of the other detective, and I stuck my foot out. He crashes on the pavement. We throw ourselves on top of him. And you fought on hot pavement. I mean, it's like fighting on the surface of the sun.
Yeah.
Kids put up a fight. Finally get him cuffed up, and we recover. I forget if it was a 380 or a smaller 9mm, right? So now we know why he's fighting. He's got this gun on him, right? Call for a couple of radio cars. They show up. 2 young cops pull up in a marked radio car from the 105 precinct. I hand the kid, the bad guy, to the 2 kids, to 2 young guys from the 105. I says, put him in the back of your car, take him over to the precinct. I go, be careful with this guy. He's a badass. He fought with us. They go, all right. And they drive off, and I go, why aren't they sitting in the back? Why isn't one of the cops sitting in the back seat with this guy?
Yeah.
Like, I just finished telling you, first off, it's police procedure.
Yeah.
Second of all, I just told you he had a gun and we had a fight.
Yeah.
With him, right? So me and Bok Choy jump in our car, which we've got the female prisoner, and the other detective jumps in the stolen car. So 3 cars are caravanning back to the precinct.
Yeah.
As we get off the exit, I'm in back of the marked radio car, and I see the kid in the back seat squirming around. What he was doing was he got his cuffs from in back of him. He got him. He's very limber. He got his cuffs in the front. He unlocks the door, and as the cops slow down to stop at a light, the back door opens up to the police car, and he jumps out cuffed. And I said, oh, shit. So I'm out the sidewalk, and I'm trying to run him down with the car, and I'm telling Bok Choy, when I get close, hit him with the door. Like, knock him down.
Yeah.
He runs to a set of yards. So I drive around the corner. I tell Bok Choy, stay with the female, right? So I put over the radio, we got an escaped prisoner, right? So I'm walking around. I got my shield out. I'm in plain clothes. And some Indian kid comes up to me. He goes, you looking for a black guy in handcuffs? I go, yeah, as a matter of fact, I am. He goes, he's in that yard.
Oh, my God.
So I said, all right. I go into the yard. Kid sees me, dives underneath the car. So I says, get out. So he won't come out. So I spray him with mace. He's screaming underneath the car. The next thing I know, the owner of the house comes out. He's a retired cop. He closes the fence. He's like, come on, let's kick the shit out of this guy. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm retiring in like a year. I don't need this.
Yeah.
Now I'm like trying to get between Bok Choy, who wants to kill this guy, and the owner of the house. And I'm like protecting the perp.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's funny.
We get the perp into the station house. He's screaming, cursing, spitting. I mean, just nonstop. And I'm like, what's up with this guy? So we book him for the stolen car, for the gun, for the escape, for assault on a PO. He's got a ton of charges pending, right? About 3 days later, I get a phone call from an ATF agent. ATF agent goes, boy, the guy you grabbed with that gun's got quite a history. And I'm like, well, spill it. What is it? Well, apparently our perp was having baby's mama drama with another guy. So he took that gun that we recovered off of him, and he shoots this guy in the ass.
Jeez.
Cops come, he gets away. When the cops interview the victim, he doesn't give him up. He's got a bullet in his ass, but won't give up our perp because he wants to get a gun and settle this in street court. But before he can get a gun, our perp gets him again. So he's out of the hospital, still got the bullet in his ass. Our perp comes back and finishes him off, kills him.
What?
Shoots him in the head.
God.
So when we arrested him, the gun, they tested that gun for ballistics. It came back to the bullet in the guy's ass and the bullet in his head a couple of days later.
Holy shit. That's a great case.
Yeah.
That's what was up with that. That could have went ugly.
Jail. Yeah, he got convicted for the homicide and the whole, like, our case went first.
Yeah.
They tried it differently. I don't know why they tried it twice, but our case, he got like 13 years, and then they went back at him for the homicide.
Man, that had to be kind of unusual for auto theft to close that homicide like that. That was
like
great.
That, yeah.
Well, that was a good lesson for guys and gals to know. Hey, you never know what you got. You got to treat everything with the highest of importance, man. Because you don't know. If you think it's a parking ticket, it could be a homicide suspect. He knows it. You don't.
It's true.
Right? He knew it. Yeah. Yeah. Pat reminded us. We had a lot of. If we saw, people that were hypes, right? They were heroin addicts. And they're in a car. That was a good indication they're in a stolen car. And then, Pat worked West Hollywood as a lieutenant. He had a French guy in a stolen convertible Mercedes tried to run him down on the Sunset Strip. He found him hours later at a motel with 10 stolen cars, part of an international car ring. You must have dealt with car rings all the time, right, in New York?
Yeah, I mean there were car rings like that. It was sophisticated. The cars were stolen. They were placed places to cool down, and they had a purpose. They were going right into a shop or a garage or someone's backyard. They were getting chopped, and either they would dispose of the bones, or they knew a guy. We call it a bones truck. A guy would show up with a van or a box truck, and they would load all the scrap metal in there, and they would take it to a scrap metal processor or dump it on the side of the road somewhere.
Wow.
And then you had the garden variety pains in the asses that kids racing, they blow a motor on their car, they don't have the money for it, they'll steal a car, they'll bring it off to the woods somewhere, take the motor out, throw it in a van, bring it back, and swap the motor. And so, yeah, I mean, we dealt with the pains in the asses, and then we dealt with the sophisticated guys.
Yeah, across the board. You were talking about LoJack. I used to love the LoJack, but the problem with the LoJack was you had a receiver in your police car, and then if somebody activated the LoJack, they reported the car stolen, and they had a number, right? They called in, and then it would start putting out this beam, and then you're just receiving, but you're just getting like a direction, right? You needed kind of like two cars to triangulate, try to locate this car, right?
It took time. Yeah,
it took a lot of time.
And depending on where you were, the signal could bounce around a lot.
Yeah,
so
it would go.
Depending like tall buildings and shit. Yeah, it would. The more rural the precinct, the easier it was.
Yeah.
If there were a lot of buildings around, forget it. And if the car was moving, forget it.
Yeah.
I worked in a precinct right off the highway. So sometimes, it was like a red herring. The car was just driving down the Deegan, and you see it, and then it was gone.
No, we had the same thing. We'd be going on the freeway or whatever, and then, or else, we think we were getting close. Next thing you know, I must be behind us. And it would be very frustrating. But then, what was sophisticated was we get some, the end when I got out of patrol, they were OnStar could tell you exactly where the damn car was, right?
And hear conversations in the car.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh my God.
Yeah, they could, because a couple of times we were on the phone with them, and you could hear like teenagers in the car.
Oh,
like
I do remember.
You could hear them in the car. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I know they could tell us that car is right now at the corner of Long Beach and Northrop, or they would give you right where it's at.
And then it got to the point where they could shut the car down.
Yeah, that's right. They would ask you, right? Do you want us to shut it down? Oh my God!
Yeah, but they wanted to be close, because if they shut it down, they just got out and walked away.
They take off.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you want to be on top of them for sure. Yeah, that was interesting. Oh man, that was good. What about your guys? When I started in '78 in upstate New York. They ran, we chased. That was our pursuit policy. But then I get to LA, and of course, there's a whole big pursuit policy. They really were pretty strict on it. How about New York?
Well, the pursuit policy of the NYPD is we didn't chase stolen cars, did we?
That's what ours was, really. Yeah.
Yeah, we did it all the time. It was one of those things, a wink and a nod. If no one got hurt, no harm, no foul. But God forbid a civilian got hurt.
Oh yeah.
Car accident, or got run down, or the bad guy got killed or screwed up, or you crashed a police car, yeah, they'd hurt you.
Yeah, so we were allowed to initiate it, and then the watch commander was supposed to determine as fast as possible that it was for stolen only, and then he would shut it down. So
right.
There was kind of like an unwritten rule that, hey, I'm going to walk to the dispatch center. It's going to take me about 5 minutes. You got about that time to take care of. Hopefully it ends, but or else you come up with something else, right? It's wanted in a robbery, or if you could kind of up the game, you know what I mean? That hey, this is
if it was a violent felony, they would let it go on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if they came at you with a car or something, it was assault with a deadly weapon. They could continue it, or yeah. So it was interesting. Yeah. So we had the same kind of thing. All right. Well, hey, we're over the hour here, but I want everybody to get this book. Vic, and so let me get the picture of this. It's a great book, man. Your whole series is on Amazon. Is this one also paperback and Kindle, right?
Paperback, a $10 paperback, or $2.99 ebook download. And if you got Kindle Unlimited, you got the subscribership. You can just turn the pages for free. Oh
my God, the stories in here are crazy good. All your stories. I mean, I got to have you come back, because I was telling somebody else. The dead horse story where the guy would have his lunch, drink his lunch, and the horse died in the back patio area, and the guy with the tow truck dragged him through to the street. Oh my God!
Yeah, they pretended the horse died outside.
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen. But I remember that story. I just love these stories, man. But these are great. These are real life NYPD stories, guys and gals. You got to get this book. It's available. I'm going to put the link in the description. And I love your podcast. You've had some great guests on, some mobsters, some great detectives and coppers on there. Where can we find your channel?
Yeah, it's on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes. It's called NYPD Through the Looking Glass Podcast. I interview retired cops and criminals.
I love it. Oh, Patrick came on here. How about, did you know Tommy Burke?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Great. Well, he says great detective. I guess we don't know.
I do think so.
I love it. What they're going to get from you, Vic, is honesty. That's what I love. Straightforward, no bullshit. So that's what you get in your books. That's what you get on your podcast and your YouTube channel, too, by the way. They can always watch you as you film your podcast episodes. Great coppers and great crooks you have and great interviews. So go to Vic Ferrari Through the Looking Glass. That's the YouTube channel, right, brother?
Yeah.
All right, man. I want to thank you for joining me. Hang around for a little debriefing, but that's it for today, buddy. Stolen cars. I love them. I love chasing them. I love getting people's cars back and getting those crooks behind bars. That's the way it used to be. Right, Vic? Any final words, brother?
No, I appreciate. Listen, Cliff, I appreciate the opportunity for being on your show. Thank you very
man,
much.
It's fun. Fun time. All right, hang around.